All right, let's jump right in today. We're going deep into the world of VR entertainment.
Exciting stuff.
It really is. And to help guide us, we're going to be looking at an article called Can Virtual Reality Redefine Our Entertainment?
I think that's the question on everyone's mind.
Yeah, just how much is VR going to change everything? In this deep dive, we'll try to figure out how VR is transforming how we experience, well, pretty much everything. Gaming, movies, even how we attend live events.
And what's really fascinating is this article suggests VR could go way beyond just entertainment.
In what way?
It suggests VR might even touch on how we connect with each other and maybe even the very nature of reality.
Okay, that's pretty deep. So where do we start?
Well, the article kicks off by talking about all the advances in VR tech and hardware.
Right, things like the Oculus Quest, HTC Vive, and PlayStation VR.
Exactly. Those are some of the big players, and it seems like they're making VR so much more user-friendly.
And more accessible, which is key.
Right. We've moved past those clunky early VR setups.
You needed a whole dedicated room for those.
I know, right? But now the focus is on creating these really sophisticated experiences, but designed for everyone.
And that shift from niche to mainstream, that's a big deal.
It really is. It's a sign that the industry is taking VR seriously, that they're in it for the long haul.
And speaking of the long haul, one area where we're seeing VR really take off is gaming.
No surprise there.
The article really highlights how different VR gaming is from traditional gaming.
Yeah, you're not just looking at a screen anymore, you're in the game.
It's that feeling of being the character, right? Not just controlling them.
Exactly. And it's not just seeing the world through their eyes, it's about reacting to it in a totally different way.
In a more visceral way, I guess.
Yeah, you're using your whole body, your senses are heightened, there's this psychological impact. It's hard to describe.
Unless you've tried it.
Right. It's one of those things you just have to experience to really understand.
And the article uses Beat Saber as an example of a game that's easy to get into, but then there are games like Half-Life, Alex, and The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners.
Now, those are immersive.
They create these incredible virtual worlds. It's like you're stepping into another reality.
And that's what's so exciting about VR, I think.
What do you mean?
It's the potential. As the technology gets even better, imagine the kinds of experiences we'll have.
It's almost limitless.
Yeah, think about things like haptic feedback suits. You could actually feel sensations in the virtual world.
Oh.
Or imagine advanced eye tracking. You could interact with characters and environments with just your eyes.
It's mind-blowing.
It really is. The possibilities are endless, and that's what keeps me so excited about the future of VR.
And the future of entertainment in general, because VR isn't just changing games, it's poised to revolutionize movies, too.
Right. And the article highlights this with a really interesting example, the Invisible Man VR.
Oh, yeah, where you actually experience the story from the main character's point of view.
Yeah, you're not just watching the movie anymore, you're living it.
It's like stepping into their shoes, feeling what they feel.
Exactly. You become the protagonist, and that's such a powerful shift.
From passive observer to active participant.
Right. It's a whole different way of engaging with a story.
I wonder, though, could that level of immersion be too much for some people?
It's a good question. I mean, some VR experiences can be pretty intense.
Especially in a genre like horror.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You're not just watching someone get scared. You are the one being scared.
It makes you think about the psychological impact, right?
Absolutely. And that's a relatively new area of study.
So we still don't know a lot about how VR affects us emotionally.
Exactly. And it's likely that different people will react in different ways.
Like some people might find it exhilarating, while others might find it overwhelming.
Right. And as VR evolves, it's important to think about those individual differences.
And maybe even develop some guidelines, some safeguards, especially as the technology gets more advanced.
I agree. We need to be cautious, but at the same time, we can't let fear hold us back.
We need to embrace the potential of VR, but responsibly.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
So it sounds like the future of VR entertainment isn't just about tech, it's about understanding the human element, too.
It is. It's about harnessing the power of VR to create truly meaningful experiences for everyone.
And the article touches on another exciting possibility, interactive films.
Oh, yeah. Where your choices actually change how the story unfolds.
It's like those choose-your-own-adventure books, but on a whole new level.
Right. Imagine the possibilities. Every viewer could have a unique experience.
That's personalized storytelling.
Yeah. It makes you wonder about the role of the viewer in all of this.
Are they just watching, or are they actually co-creating the story?
Fascinating questions.
It's like VR is challenging our traditional ideas about storytelling and entertainment.
It is. We're moving from passive consumption to active participation,
And that's a huge shift.
a paradigm shift.
It really is, and it's not just movies and games that are being transformed.
The article also talks about live events, concerts, festivals.
And we saw this happen during the pandemic. Virtual events became a lifeline.
Right. VR emerged as a powerful way for artists to connect with their fans.
Travis Scott's Fortnite concert is a great example.
Millions of people tuned in for that.
It was visually stunning, so interactive. It felt like a glimpse into the future.
Absolutely. And now imagine being able to stand in the front row of any concert, no matter where you are.
Or maybe even join a virtual after-party with other fans.
So democratizing access to entertainment and culture.
But does it really compare to actually being there in person?
That's the question everyone asks, and it's a fair one.
There's something special about being physically present at a live event.
I agree, there's an energy, a shared experience.
But VR offers something different.
It's a different kind of magic, a level of immersion you can't get in the real world.
Imagine flying through the air during a concert.
Or seeing the music from the artist's perspective.
That's something VR can offer that a traditional concert can't.
Right, so it's not about replacing the real-world experience, it's about adding to it.
Giving people more options, more ways to connect.
And making those experiences accessible to everyone, no matter where they are or their circumstances.
And it's not just about entertainment either. The article mentions sports and even virtual travel.
Right. Platforms like NextVR are already partnering with the NBA and UFC.
They're offering VR broadcasts of live events.
Imagine sitting courtside at a basketball game from your living room.
Or being ringside at a UFC fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just watching. Imagine VR training simulations for athletes.
Or experiencing a game from different angles.
It could even make sports more accessible for people with disabilities.
And then there's virtual travel.
Instead of just watching a documentary, you can visit the Grand Canyon.
Or explore the streets of Tokyo. Or dive into the ocean depths.
VR can make travel more accessible, more affordable, and more sustainable.
It's like VR is changing not just how we entertain ourselves, but how we learn and experience the world.
It is. And we're just
Interesting.
scratching the surface. There's so much more to come.
It's exciting, but a little daunting too, right?
I know what you mean.
Especially when we start thinking about the societal and cultural impacts of VR.
There are some big questions to consider.
And the article brings up some important ones, like how VR might impact social connection and interaction.
As we spend more time in virtual spaces, will it strengthen our relationships or weaken them?
It's like the question with social media, but amplified.
The article points to platforms like AltSpace VR and VR Chat, where people are already connecting in virtual spaces.
They're attending parties, meetups, even family gatherings, all virtually.
And that makes you wonder, could this become the preferred way to socialize for some people?
And if so, what does that mean for the future of human connection?
It's a big question.
It is, and it's one we'll have to explore further.
Yeah, there's a lot more to unpack here.
But for now, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
I agree. This deep dive has been fascinating so far.
We've seen how VR is changing entertainment and how it might change the world.
And it's clear that this is just the beginning.
The future of VR is full of potential and challenges.
It's up to all of us to shape that future,
To make sure VR is used for good.
to enhance our lives, not diminish them.
And that's a conversation we need to keep having.
Absolutely. The future of VR is a future we all need to be a part of.
Well said.
Thanks.
So, to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the world of VR with us.
And we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions.
And keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
The future of VR is in our hands. Let's make it amazing.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep diving deep.
See you soon.
So, we're back and ready to continue our deep dive into the world of VR entertainment.
Things are getting really interesting now.
I know, right? Before the break, we were discussing how VR is impacting everything from games and movies to live events.
Right, even simple social gatherings aren't safe.
It seems like VR is blurring the lines between what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's like the physical and digital are merging.
Exactly. It's making us question what's tangible and what's not.
I know. It challenges our very idea of reality.
As VR gets even more sophisticated and blends into our lives, could it actually change our perception of reality itself?
That's a fascinating question. It's possible. Imagine spending hours every day immersed in this hyper-realistic virtual world.
It's like, could we even tell the difference anymore?
Right, it could make us question the boundaries between the virtual and the real,
It could affect our priorities, our values.
even our sense of self.
It's a bit like that movie The Matrix, though hopefully less dystopian.
I was just thinking that we're not plugging into a simulated reality yet, but
But the questions the movie raised, they're becoming more and more relevant.
absolutely, especially as VR tech advances.
It is a bit unsettling when you think about it.
Yeah, a bit, but also really exciting.
Okay, true. Even without getting into the Matrix stuff, VR is clearly going to change how we socialize.
Right. Think about how social media has already changed things.
It's transformed how we interact with each other.
Well, VR could take that even further.
Remember those social VR platforms like AltSpace VR and VR Chat?
Yeah, people are already using them to connect and interact in virtual spaces.
They're attending parties, conferences, even family gatherings, all virtually.
It's crazy to think about. Imagine a future where we're teleporting ourselves across the world without leaving our homes.
But will those virtual interactions be as fulfilling?
That's the big question. Will it strengthen our social bonds or weaken them?
It's like, are we trading real connections for virtual ones?
Well, VR could help people connect who might never meet in person.
True. It could bridge geographical distances.
It could help people who feel isolated or lonely.
I see what you mean. It could be a good thing for some people.
Right, it could be really beneficial, but
But there's a risk too, right?
yeah, virtual interactions could become a substitute for real-world ones.
People could end up spending less time face to face.
And those essential social bonds could weaken.
It's a tough one, this balance between the virtual and the real.
Yeah, we need to be thoughtful about how we use VR. We need to be aware of the potential downsides.
But we also need to be open to the possibilities, the positive impacts.
Definitely. VR has the potential to enhance our lives in so many ways.
Like in education, for example, the article mentioned some really cool applications.
Oh yeah, imagine learning history by virtually visiting ancient Rome.
Or studying biology by dissecting a virtual frog.
VR could make education so much more engaging and interactive.
And accessible. Not everyone can go on a field trip to Rome.
Right, VR could open up a world of learning opportunities for everyone.
And it's not just for kids either. It could revolutionize job training and professional development.
Think about using VR to simulate real-world work environments.
You could train doctors, pilots, engineers, all in a safe, controlled setting.
It could change the way we work, the way we learn new skills.
So VR is not just about entertainment. It's about education, connection, and even changing the way we work.
It really is a transformative technology, and we've only just begun to explore its potential.
Speaking of potential, let's go back to VR entertainment for a moment, specifically storytelling.
Yeah, we talked about interactive films earlier, how VR could change how we experience stories.
Those choose-your-own-adventure stories, but amplified.
Right. Imagine branching narratives, where your choices determine the ending.
Or immersive experiences where you're not just watching, you're participating.
It's a whole new way of telling and experiencing stories.
But how will VR change the emotional impact of those stories?
That's a great question. Think about empathy.
Empathy.
When you're truly immersed in a VR experience, you're not just seeing the world through the character's eyes, you're feeling their emotions.
Walking in their shoes.
Exactly. You experience their challenges, you make decisions from their perspective.
That could lead to a much deeper understanding of the character, the story.
And a deeper understanding of other people in general.
It could help us relate to each other better, understand different perspectives.
Absolutely. Imagine experiencing the world from the perspective of a refugee.
Or a chimpanzee.
Right. VR could open our eyes to new worlds, new ways of thinking.
It's incredible.
It is, but we need to be realistic too.
Right. There are challenges as well as opportunities.
We need to be mindful of the ethical considerations.
As VR becomes more integrated into our lives, we need to make sure it's being used responsibly.
And ethically.
Absolutely. So let's dive into those ethical considerations.
Let's talk about the potential downsides of VR.
And the challenges we need to address.
It's important to have these conversations.
So what are some of the key ethical issues we should be thinking about?
Well, privacy is a big one.
Privacy. How so?
VR systems collect a lot of data about us, our movements, our gaze, our emotional responses.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
It's like, who has access to that data? How is it being used? Is it protected?
Yeah, those are important questions.
It's like the concerns we have about data privacy online, but amplified.
Because VR is so much more immersive, it's collecting even more personal data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about protecting our information.
What else is there?
It's about making sure VR is used in a way that respects our autonomy.
Our autonomy. What do you mean?
Our right to control our own experiences, our own minds.
I see. Like, could VR be used to manipulate us?
It's a possibility. Think about advertising.
Advertisers could use VR to target us with personalized messages.
that bypass our conscious filters.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
And it's not just about advertising. Think about propaganda, even psychological warfare.
Okay, now that's getting really unsettling.
It's a powerful technology, and we need to make sure it's not being used for harmful purposes.
So it's about controlling the content, the experiences that are created for VR.
Exactly. We need to develop VR ethically and responsibly.
We need guidelines, regulations. We need to empower users to make informed choices.
It's like we need a whole new set of digital ethics for the age of VR.
I think you're right. This is uncharted territory.
We need to proceed with caution and wisdom.
And what about the impact on mental health?
That's another important consideration. VR experiences can be very stimulating.
And for some people, that could be a problem.
Right? It could trigger anxiety, stress, even PTSD.
So we need to be mindful of the potential psychological effects.
We need safeguards to protect vulnerable users.
And spaces where people can talk about their experiences, share their concerns.
Yeah, open communication is crucial.
So the future of VR isn't just about tech. It's about understanding the human impact.
It's about finding that balance, harnessing the power of VR while being aware of the risks.
It's a delicate balance.
But it's balance we need to find.
If we want VR to reach its full potential,
I agree. We need to be thoughtful, responsible, and ethical.
and excited. We can't forget about the excitement.
Right. There's so much potential here, so much to explore.
It's an incredible time to be alive, to be witnessing this technological revolution.
The next few years will be crucial
It's up to all of us to shape the future of VR.
to make sure it's a future we can all be proud of.
And on that note, I think we're ready to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Yeah, let's continue this conversation.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
See you soon.
Okay, we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into the world of VR entertainment.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've covered the potential of VR gaming, immersive cinema, virtual concerts, even virtual travel.
And how VR could change how we learn, how we connect, how we experience the world.
But before we finish, we need to address the potential downsides.
Right, the ethical considerations.
Every new technology has them, especially one as powerful as VR.
We can't just focus on the exciting stuff. We have to be realistic, too.
So what are some of the key ethical concerns with VR?
Well, privacy is a big one. VR systems collect a lot of data about us.
Like what kind of data?
Our movements, where we look, even our emotional responses.
I didn't think about that.
It's sensitive information.
So the question is, who has access to that data? How is it being used?
Exactly. And is it being protected?
It's like those concerns about data privacy online, but even more intense.
Right. Because VR is so immersive, it's collecting even more personal data.
It's a bit unnerving when you think about it.
And it's not just about protecting our information. It's about autonomy.
Autonomy, what do you mean?
Our right to control our own experiences, our own thoughts.
I see. Like, could VR be used to manipulate us in some way?
It's a possibility. Think about how immersive it is.
We're more susceptible to suggestion when we're in that virtual world.
Exactly. Advertisers could use VR to target us with personalized messages.
Messages that bypass our normal defenses.
Right. It's like subliminal advertising, but even more powerful.
And it's not just about advertising either.
Think about propaganda or even psychological warfare.
That's a scary thought.
It is. VR is a powerful tool, and it can be used for good or for bad.
So we need to be very careful about who controls the content.
And the experiences that are created for VR.
We need to make sure VR is developed ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. We need guidelines, regulations.
We need to empower users to make informed choices.
It's like we need a whole new set of digital ethics for VR.
We're entering uncharted territory.
And we need to proceed with caution, but also with a sense of wonder.
Because there's so much potential here.
And so much to learn.
Another concern is the impact of VR on mental health.
Right. VR experiences can be very stimulating, sometimes too stimulating.
It could trigger anxiety, stress, even PTSD in some people.
We need to be aware of those risks.
You need safeguards in place.
And we need to create spaces where people can talk about their experiences openly.
So the future of VR isn't just about the technology.
It's about the human impact, the psychological and social implications.
It's about finding that balance, harnessing the power of VR while mitigating the risks.
It's a challenge, but it's a challenge we need to face head on.
If we want VR to truly enhance our lives.
And I believe it can. I'm optimistic about the future of VR.
Me too. There's so much potential here.
To connect with each other, to learn new things, to experience the world in new ways.
It's an incredible time to be alive, to be part of this technological revolution.
It's up to all of us to shape the future of VR, to make it a future we can all be proud of.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
I've learned so much.
Me too.
So, to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the world of VR with us.
We encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring,
Keep asking questions.
and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Because the future of VR is in our hands.
Let's make it a future that's ethical, responsible, and amazing.
Well said.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time, keep diving deep.
See you in the metaverse.